The Hunter from the Sky. The Thomas Mantell Incident. Chapter 3, The Anatomy of the Official Lie, Project Venus. Shockwave and Initial Questions. When Captain Thomas Mantell's P-51 Mustang opened a smoking crater in the Kentucky soil, it was more than just a plane crash. It was a symbolic blow struck against the absolute dominance of the American Air Force in the skies. For the first time, an American fighter pilot had lost his life in an engagement with an unidentified object. The shockwave shook not only Godman Field but also the Pentagon and Washington. At the height of the Cold War, the public learning of a deadly threat in the sky that they didn't understand could lead to societal panic. An explanation had to be made. A quick, decisive explanation to calm the panic. However, initial reports from the crash site indicated that this explanation would not be easy. The debris field was vast, Mantell's body was shattered, and most importantly, recordings of the final radio conversations with the tower-mentioned object that was metallic, tremendous, and had windows. This was evidence that was hard to cover up. The initial investigation, the Skyhook theory. The Air Force's UFO Investigation Unit, Project Sign, later to become Project Blue Book, was tasked with investigating the incident. Captain Edward Ruppelt, one of the most important figures in Air Force UFO history, who led the investigation, traveled to the crash site in Godman Field. The theory initially put forward was that Mantell had encountered a part of a top-secret high-altitude Navy balloon project known as Skyhook. The theory: Skyhook balloons were metallic-looking, massive vehicles capable of reaching high altitudes, 100,000 feet and above. They were designed for atmospheric research and potentially for espionage over the Soviet Union. Their shape resembled the teardrop or cone shape described by Mantell. The contradiction, however, this theory quickly collapsed. There were no known Skyhook balloon launches in that region on the day of the incident. Furthermore, the object Mantell described was moving at speeds of over 200 miles per hour and was climbing, unlike a balloon drifting with the wind. For a balloon to perform such maneuvers defied the laws of physics. Ruppelt and his team needed a more plausible, natural phenomenon explanation. And this need gave birth to one of the most controversial explanations in UFO history. The Big Lie, blaming planet Venus. When the Skyhook theory fell through, the Air Force Public Relations Department presented the best, rational explanation they had to the public: the planet Venus. The official explanation, according to the Air Force report, due to atmospheric conditions on the day of the incident, January 7, 1948, the planet Venus appeared unusually bright in the sky, even in the middle of the day. Captain Mantell, under the influence of hypoxia, mistook this bright planet for a UFO, exceeded his altitude limit to catch it, lost consciousness, and crashed. Basis of the explanation: Venus is the third brightest object in the sky after the Sun and the Moon, and under the right conditions, it can be seen even during the day. On paper, this explanation was the perfect cover story. It attributed the incident to pilot error and a natural phenomenon, eliminating the idea of an alien threat and calming the public. However, this explanation was far from convincing for aviation experts, other pilots, and even Captain Ruppelt, who conducted the investigation. The collapse of the Venus theory. When examined closely, the Venus theory was full of internal inconsistencies. 1. Astronomical position. At the time of the incident, afternoon, the position of the planet Venus did not match the position where Mantell reported seeing the object, just above the Sun. Astronomers stated that the probability of Venus appearing that bright on that day was extremely low. 2. Pilot's experience. Thomas Mantell was an experienced pilot with hundreds of hours flown in World War II. How logical was it for a fighter pilot to describe a stationary planet as a moving object that was 100 meters in diameter, metallic, and had windows, and chase it? This was an insult to Mantell's piloting skills. 3. Other witnesses. Mantell was not the only one who saw the object that day. Hundreds of civilian witnesses and officers in the tower also saw the same object and reported its movements. It was impossible for a planet to perform maneuvers over the skies of Kentucky. For Mantell's last words, Mantell had clearly stated on the radio that it was metallic and tremendous. He even said he saw windows. Could a planet have windows? The Air Force ignored these contradictions and entered the Venus theory into the records as the official explanation. This was a great disappointment for the Mantell family. To them, their hero's son had died chasing a real danger threatening his country, not a planet. Project Blue Book and changing reports. Over the years, the Air Force's UFO investigation unit became known as Project Blue Book, and the Mantell file was opened and closed repeatedly. With each new report, the details of the incident were blurred a little more. 1950s report, it was finalized that Mantell hallucinated due to hypoxia and chased a planet. 1960s report, Condon report the incident was classified as pilot error and inadequate oxygen equipment. The UFO connection was completely denied. The Air Force turned Mantell's death into a training case educating pilots on the importance of oxygen use in high-altitude flights. The elements of mystery and heroism in the event were erased, only a tragic error remained. However, some witnesses and documents that emerged years later showed that there might be another truth beyond the official story. The lasting legacy of the cover-up. The Thomas Mantell incident is one of the most important turning points in UFO history. This event proved that UFOs were not just strange lights, but physical objects capable of lethal consequences. At the same time, this event laid the foundation for the government's policy on UFOs: deny, ridicule, cover up. The Venus lie was the first example of disinformation campaigns that would later be applied in Roswell, Kecksburg, and other incidents. Did Mantell die chasing a planet? Or did he encounter a technology humanity was not yet ready for in the heart of the Cold War? In the upcoming final chapter, we will examine the legacy left by the Mantell incident on ufology. How did this event affect UFO reporting by other pilots? And in light of today's modern UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena, research, what could the object Mantell chased have been? Tune in to part 4 to see the conclusion of this deadly pursuit and continue this tragic tale of heroism with us.